The ES6 standard provided a new way to define variables. So let's take a look at the difference between var versus let. Now the main difference is with how the variables are scoped. However, there is another difference as well, and it has to do with hoisting. So first, the scope of variables declared with var is the function itself, or if they're declared as a global variable, it is the global environment. Whereas variables that are declared with let, the scope of those variables is simply the code block, the block of code contained within curly braces. Now as for hoisting, variables declared with let appear not to be hoisted. Now from an application perspective, that is true. So the way we use it, that seems to be true. But in reality, they are hoisted, just not initialized. We will discuss hoisting in the next topic. So in this movie, we'll just deal with the example of scope. In this example, I have a function that is logging to the console, but it's going through a for loop, and it's logging the value of I to the console each time we go through the for loop. Once the for loop is complete, it then logs I one more time. Now in this first example, we declare I with var. Let's go ahead and call that function and see what happens. Refresh, console, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. This is the final console statement here because the for loop was as long as it was less than 5. All right, now let's change this to let. Now remember, let should define the scope of the variable to the code block. There's our code block. So let's see what happens when we try to log I to the console at line 15. Save this, refresh. We get the first 4 just fine, but once we get to that final console.log statement, we get a reference error where I is not defined, and that's because I was defined with let. So the scope is limited. So that is the difference in scope between var and let. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, how does const figure into this? Well, const is just like let when it comes to scope. So the scope that it defines is that block scope. All right, let's move on to the next topic.